On the evening of the 24th of November, 2022, in the quiet residential area of Kilburn Drive in Shevington, Wigan, UK, the body of a man was found lying in front of his house. Police quickly arrived at the scene after receiving a report. The victim was identified as Liam Smith, an electrical engineer who lived alone, had no criminal record, and was not involved in any recorded conflicts. The scene shocked emergency services. The victim's body showed signs of being shot, soaked in sulfuric acid and flammable substances, and set on fire on the spot. Security cameras around the area recorded a dark SUV appearing hours earlier, along with images of a man approaching the victim and quickly leaving after committing the crime. No one in the quiet neighborhood could have imagined that someone like Liam Smith would be the victim of such a brutal murder. This was no ordinary murder. It was the culmination of a vicious plot hatched after a seemingly harmless Tinder date. Liam Smith, 38, is a devoted father, a former British Army soldier, and the owner of a small company called LPS Electrical and Build Limited. He lives in Shevington, Wigan, a quiet residential area in the northwest of England. From the outside, Liam's life is the epitome of a calm, stable, trouble-free man. Liam lived a relatively private life, had no criminal record, and was not on any criminal watch lists. He devoted most of his time to his work and his two young children, his greatest pride. In the eyes of his friends, neighbors, and colleagues, Liam was a gentle, hard-working, and devoted family man. No one could have imagined that someone like him would become the target of a brutal murder, a crime that shocked the whole of England. His passing left a huge void, especially for his two young children, the people he loved the most. It all started in 2019, when Liam Smith, then single, used the dating app Tinder. There, he met a woman named Rachel Fulstow. The two quickly decided to meet in person, went out for dinner, drinks, and ended the night at a hotel. The next morning, they remained friendly, even having lunch together. For Liam, it was just a short date, leaving nothing unusual or worrying. He did not keep in touch with Rachel for long, and continued his life as usual. But 2 years later, Rachel Fulstow entered a new relationship with a man with a strong, controlling personality, Michael Hillier. In a private conversation, Rachel recalled the incident with Liam Smith in vague terms, implying that the night didn't go exactly the way she wanted it to. However, this account was not accompanied by any specific accusations. Rachel did not report it to the police, did not report it, and did not take any legal action against Liam. Everything remained a private, unverified story. Michael Hillier, a Sheffield-based cannabis dealer with extensive experience in the underworld, kept a low profile, using burner phones, fake car plates, and completely anonymous social media accounts. For Hillier, avoiding the law was not just a skill, it was a survival instinct. His familiarity with the world outside the law makes him particularly dangerous. He knows how to hide his tracks, cover his tracks, and disappear before he is discovered. But what makes him most frightening is the coldness with which he acts, even when his motives are emotional. When Rachel Fulstow tells him about her past encounter with Liam Smith, a story that is unsubstantiated and not officially reported, Hillier is instantly enraged. With his controlling nature and warped sense of honor, he doesn't care about the truth. In his mind, the mere feeling of being insulted is enough to justify punishment. From there, a plan for revenge began to form, not to seek justice but to relieve the hatred that burned from within. And the person he never saw again after a fleeting appointment suddenly became the target of a death sentence in the mind of a cold-blooded killer. Around May 2022, the plot to kill Liam Smith began to be hatched in a quiet but meticulous manner. Rachel Fulstow, though not directly involved, played an indispensable role. She was the one who raised suspicions and assisted Hillier in approaching the target. Using her phone and search engines, Rachel looked up Liam's home and work addresses, monitored the weather in Wigan, where he lived, and even learned how to burn cars to cover up his tracks. Meanwhile, Michael Hillier, who directly executed the plan, began to carry out careful preparations, as if he were conducting a military operation. In his private basement, he practiced shooting regularly to ensure accuracy when acting. He did not use conventional weapons, but personally modified a gun to be able to fire real bullets, upgrading it into a dangerous killing tool. Not stopping there, Hillier also purchased strong chemicals, including sulfuric acid and soda crystal, with the aim of disfiguring the body or destroying evidence after the crime. To avoid being tracked, he used a Mitsubishi Shogun with a fake license plate, R22 Ampere, to distract traffic cameras and identification systems. Each step of the plan was planned with cold, terrifying precision. No action was random, no crime was spontaneous, but the result of weeks of preparation, with Rachel providing the information, Hillier executing. As the plot slowly came to fruition, Liam Smith lived peacefully, unaware of the tragedy that was approaching. One winter evening, a quiet street on Kilburn Drive, Shvington, Wigan suddenly became the scene of a brutal murder. In the early hours of the morning, Michael Hillier drove a dark Mitsubishi Shogun and parked quietly opposite Liam Smith's house, carrying chemicals, tools, and a carefully prepared murder plan. For more than 10 hours, Hillier sat silently in the car, patiently watching every movement, without giving away any suspicious signs. When it got dark, and Liam stepped out of the house, he left the car in his electrician's uniform, reflective vest, headlamp, perfect camouflage in a residential area. In a split second, Hillier approached and fired at close range, directly into the victim's face. The single bullet knocked Liam down on the spot without a chance to fight back. Not stopping there, a few minutes after leaving, Hillier returned to the scene. At that time, the neighborhood was still unaware of what had happened. In the darkness, he pulled out a bottle of sulfuric acid and a bag of soda crystal, a highly corrosive mixture, and poured it over Liam's body. The goal of this brutal act was to erase all traces of DNA and disfigure the victim's face, making identification as difficult as possible. After completing the crime, Hillier drove away from the area. The Mitsubishi Shogun, the vehicle used in the crime, was taken to a remote area and set on fire, leaving no forensic evidence. The murder was carried out with cold cruelty and almost emotionless preparation. The victim, a gentle father, was brutally murdered in a familiar neighborhood, in the middle of a seemingly peaceful day. The case shocked the whole of Britain, not only because of the level of violence, but also because of the senselessness and viciousness of the motive behind it. Just days after the grisly murder in Wigan, Michael Hillier and his girlfriend Rachel Fulstow left the UK for Jamaica, as if nothing had happened. The holiday had been planned in advance, and later photographs showed them horseback riding in the sea, laughing in the clear blue water, hardly like two people who had just committed a brutal crime. In the UK, Greater Manchester Police faced a difficult investigation. The victim's body was badly damaged by chemicals. The crime scene had been meticulously erased. There were no witnesses or clear CCTV. The only clue was a suspicious car seen nearby. Meanwhile, the two perpetrators were enjoying their holidays on the other side of the world. On one side was the pain and the hunt. On the other side was the smile on the blue sea, exposing the cold and ruthlessness of the killers. The initial investigation seemed to have reached a dead end when the victim's body was destroyed by acid, and there were almost no clear traces left at the crime scene. But investigators from Greater Manchester Police did not give up. They started with the only thing left: a witness who gave a vague description of a suspicious car leaving the scene on the night of the murder. Hundreds of hours of CCTV footage from around Kilburn Drive were then manually reviewed and found a dark-colored Mitsubishi Shogun with a false R22 Ampere number plate parked near the victim's home for 10 hours on November 24, 2022, exactly the same time as the crime. The car was then seen leaving shortly after the shooting. Rachel Fulstow initially appeared calm, denying any involvement, but her search history, such as how long does it take for a car to burn, or how to dispose of a body, told a different story. She was no longer a bystander, but a silent accomplice who helped plan and cover up the crime. With persistence, The police tracked down every little clue, from cars to phones to online data. The seemingly airtight plot was finally exposed, bringing both perpetrators to light. After weeks of intense investigation, the pieces finally came together. In January 2023, Michael Hillier was arrested. During interrogation, he remained calm, admitted to part of the act but only pleaded guilty to manslaughter, trying to deny the murder element, claiming it was a spontaneous act. However, the evidence was clear. The plan was prepared in advance, with guns, chemicals, fake license plates, and more than 10 hours of surveillance on the victim. The use of acid to destroy the body and burn the car could not have been an impromptu act. A month later, in February 2023, Rachel Fulstow was arrested after repeatedly contradicting her testimony. Her lies and attempts to conceal her role quickly fell apart when police compared digital evidence. She had researched how to dispose of a body, had been present at the locations involved, and had gone on holiday after the murder, as if nothing had happened. In July 2023, the two were brought to trial at Manchester Crown Court. During the trial, Hillier continued to insist that he was guilty of manslaughter, while Rachel denied any responsibility, saying she had no knowledge of her boyfriend's plans to kill. However, the truth was all too clear. The search maps stored on the phone, the GPS-based travel history, the ambiguous text messages between the two, and the calmness after the victim's death, all combined into a solid chain of evidence, refuting all denials. In the light of the law and before the jury, what they tried to hide was gradually revealed, not only the murder, but also the cold, calculating and chilling lack of remorse. After weeks of trial, on the 25th of August 2023, the final verdict was delivered at Manchester Crown Court. Both defendants received the maximum sentence allowed by law, a dramatic end to a series of crimes that were carefully planned and carried out with terrifying coldness. Michael Hillier was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum of 33 years before he could be considered for parole. The court was clear. This was a premeditated murder, with all the elements of calculation, preparation, and concealment. Hillier's attempts to downplay the seriousness of his actions, such as pleading guilty to manslaughter, were rejected. Rachel Fulstow, who tried to maintain her innocence, denying any involvement, could not escape the truth. She was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 30 years. The jury found that she not only knew about the murder plan, but also played an active role in preparing for it and assisting in its aftermath. The sentences handed down to both were not only punishment for what they had done to Liam Smith and his family, but also a clear message that cold-blooded, calculated acts, no matter how well hidden, will eventually come to light, and that justice, however late, always comes.
I had the chance to publicly clear his name. Liam's life wasn't the only one that was destroyed that night. Everyone who knew and loved Liam have been left completely heartbroken, devastated and traumatized by the event.
Although justice was served with harsh sentences for the victim's family, especially Liam Smith's two sons, the loss they suffered is permanent. The two children had to grow up without a loving father, losing not only a pillar of support but also deep emotional wounds that are difficult to erase over time. Liam's parents, Phil and Julia Smith, appeared at press conferences after the trial many times, often choking back tears. They called their son's death the most brutal murder they had ever known, not only because of the brutality, but also because of the cold-blooded indifference of the perpetrators. Their pain was accompanied by anger. A gentleman, with no grudges, was destroyed because of a story that was never verified. The Liam Smith case raises profound questions in society. It shows the destructive power of misinformation. When a story without evidence can spark murder, it exposes the dark side of toxic relationships, where affection turns into control and hatred. Most importantly, it warns that when hatred is fueled by misguided emotions, the consequences can be devastating and irreversible. In the darkness of the case, a message remains clear. Justice may punish the wicked, but only awareness and compassion can prevent the same tragedy from happening again. Liam Smith's life was taken, but his death is a painful reminder of the value of truth, trust, and the importance of healthy relationships in a civilized society. But are 30 and 33 years really enough? Can the law heal the wounds that two fatherless children must carry for the rest of their lives? And most importantly, if you were the victim's family, would you forgive? Or would you also carry anger as an indelible part of your memory? Share your thoughts in the comments section. If you want to accompany real stories, where justice and humanity face each other, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos.